"You're trespassing!" The words hit me before I even saw her face. I stood at my own cabin door, foreclosure deed in hand, staring at a padlock I'd never bought. She appeared from the side clipboard pressed to her chest, heels clicking on gravel, smile rehearsed. "This cabin belongs to me," she said. "I have paperwork too, and I've been HOA president here for 8 years. Who do you think this community will believe if you're just joining this story?" She had no idea what those documents would reveal, and what I uncovered went far deeper than one stolen cabin. The padlock gleamed in the afternoon sun brand new, still shiny, completely out of place on a cabin that had been sitting in foreclosure for 18 months. I'd driven 4 hours from Denver to see this place for the first time since winning the auction. The county had processed my deed 3 weeks ago. Every document was in order. And yet here I stood, locked out of my own property, facing a woman who acted like she owned the world. Her name was Brenda Holloway, though I didn't know that yet. What I learned was the way she held herself, shoulders back, chin lifted, clipboard angled like a shield. Behind her, a black Mercedes SUV sat in the gravel driveway, engine still ticking from recent use. Through the cabin window, I could see furniture, a leather couch, a floor lamp, a coffee table with magazines fanned across its surface. None of it was in the auction photos. Someone had moved in. Someone had made themselves at home. "I'm not trespassing," I said, keeping my voice level. "I bought this cabin at a county foreclosure auction. I have the deed right here." I held up the document certified, stamped, notarized. She didn't even glance at it. "The county made an error," she said smoothly. "I acquired this property through a quitclaim deed 2 weeks before your so-called auction. My paperwork supersedes yours." She reached into her clipboard and produced a single sheet of paper, holding it up just long enough for me to see the county seal at the top. "This matter is already settled. Mr. Cole? Nathan Cole." "Mr. Cole." She smiled, but her eyes stayed cold. "I suggest you contact whoever sold you that deed and ask for a refund. This cabin belongs to me. It has for over a month now." I looked past her, toward the window, toward the furniture that shouldn't exist. The previous owner had defaulted on his mortgage. The bank had foreclosed. The county had auctioned the property to recover unpaid taxes. I had followed every legal step. I had the winning bid receipt, the transfer of title, and the recorded deed. And now a woman with a clipboard was telling me none of it mattered. "I'd like to see your quitclaim deed," I said. "The full document, not just a flash." Her smile tightened. "I'm not obligated to show you anything. You're on my property. I've asked you to leave. If you refuse, I'll call the sheriff." She pulled out her phone, one finger hovering over the screen. "Your choice." I didn't move. She dialed. 20 minutes later, a county sheriff's cruiser rolled up the gravel road. The deputy who stepped out was young, maybe late 20s, with the cautious look of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. Brenda walked toward him immediately, clipboard extended, voice shifting into something softer, more neighborly. I couldn't hear what she said, but I saw him nod. When he finally approached me, his expression was apologetic but firm. "Sir, I understand you believe you have a claim to this property," he said. "But without a court order clarifying ownership, I can't remove Ms. Holloway or allow you access. This is a civil dispute. You'll need to resolve it through the legal system." I showed him my deed. He looked at it, looked at Brenda's document, and shook his head. "Both of these appear valid on their face. I'm not qualified to determine which takes precedence. I'm sorry, sir. My hands are tied." Brenda stood behind him, arms crossed, watching me with quiet satisfaction. She had done this before. I could see it in the way she waited, patient, confident, like a predator who knew exactly how the hunt would end. The deputy gave me a card for the county clerk's office and suggested I consult a real estate attorney. Then he left. Brenda walked back toward the cabin without another word, disappearing inside and closing the door behind her. The new lock clicked into place. I stood in the driveway for a long moment, staring at that door, at the windows, at the Mercedes that cost more than most people's annual salary. Then I walked back to my truck. I didn't slam the door. I didn't speed away. I sat behind the wheel, pulled out my laptop, and connected to my phone's hotspot. The first search, how to verify property ownership in Colorado. The second, foreclosure deed versus quitclaim deed priority. The third, how to check if a quitclaim deed is fraudulent. As I scrolled through results, a knock on my window made me jump. An older woman stood outside, silver hair, flannel jacket, work boots caked with mud. She glanced toward the cabin, then back at me, and lowered her voice. "You're not the first one she's done this to," she said. "My name's Claire. Claire Dawson. I live 2 properties over." She looked toward Brenda's Mercedes, her jaw tight. "If you want to know what really happened to this cabin and the 2 others before it, come find me tomorrow. But don't come after dark. And don't tell her we talked." She was gone before I could respond, walking briskly up the road and disappearing around a bend. I looked back at the cabin. The curtains had moved. Someone was watching. The email arrived at 6:47 the next morning. Subject line: "Notice of trespass violation, immediate action required." And it was sent from the official Pinewood Ridge HOA account, CC'd to what appeared to be every property owner in the community. The message accused me of unlawful entry onto private property, harassment of a longtime community member, and threatening behavior toward HOA leadership. It demanded that I cease all contact with residents, remove myself from the community, and warned that legal action was being prepared. My name was spelled correctly. My license plate number was included. Someone had done their homework. I hadn't even unpacked my suitcase, and I was already being painted as a criminal. I didn't respond to the email. Instead, I drove to the county seat, a 40-minute trip down winding mountain roads, and walked into the recorder's office at exactly 9 o'clock. The clerk behind the counter was a tired-looking man in his 50s, reading glasses perched on his nose. I asked for a complete chain of title on the cabin property, plus copies of any documents recorded in the past 2 years. He typed slowly, squinted at his screen, and printed out a stack of papers without comment. The fee was $32. I paid in cash and found a quiet corner to review everything. The foreclosure timeline was exactly as I'd understood it. The previous owner, a man named Gerald Fenton, had defaulted on his mortgage in the spring of 2 years ago. The bank initiated foreclosure proceedings that summer. The property went to the county auction 14 months later. I was the winning bidder. My deed was recorded 3 weeks after that. Everything was in order until I reached the quitclaim deed. It was dated 2 weeks before the auction. According to the document, Gerald Fenton had voluntarily transferred all ownership rights to Brenda Holloway for the sum of $1. The notary stamp was crisp and official. The county seal was genuine. But something was wrong. I pulled up the original mortgage documents on my phone, the ones I'd downloaded from the county's online portal before the auction. Gerald Fenton's signature was on the first page. I compared it to the signature on the quitclaim deed. The letters were similar, but the slant was different. The pressure was inconsistent. The F in Fenton looped backward on the mortgage. On the quitclaim, it looped forward. Either Gerald Fenton had dramatically changed his handwriting in 18 months, or someone else had signed his name. I photographed both documents side by side and made notes in my phone. Then I looked at the notary line. The name was Megan Holloway, same last name as Brenda. I wrote that down too, when I returned to my motel that afternoon. A certified letter was waiting at the front desk. It was from a law firm in Denver, Kramer, Holt and Associates, sent on behalf of Brenda Holloway. The letter accused me of defamation, trespass, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. It demanded that I immediately cease all claims to the property and refrain from contacting Ms. Holloway or any member of the Pinewood Ridge community. Failure to comply. The letter warned, would result in civil litigation seeking damages in excess of $100,000. The signature at the bottom was illegible, but the letterhead looked expensive. I folded it carefully and placed it in my document folder. Two could play this game. That evening, I met Claire Dawson at a diner 15 miles outside the community, far enough that no one from Pinewood Ridge would see us. She was already seated when I arrived, nursing a cup of black coffee, her eyes scanning the parking lot through the window. "You got the HOA email?" she said. It wasn't a question. I nodded. "And a cease and desist letter, apparently. I'm a dangerous criminal now." Claire snorted. That's her playbook. Isolate, intimidate, litigate. She's been doing it for years. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. 2 years ago, a couple named Roy and Janet Simmons bought a foreclosed cabin 3 lots down from yours. Same situation, they showed up with a valid deed. Found Brenda already inside, claiming she'd acquired it through a quitclaim. They fought her for 8 months, spent almost $40,000 in legal fees. Eventually, they gave up and walked away. She paused. The cabin is still empty. Brenda never moved in. She just wanted them gone. I asked the obvious question, why, what does she gain from this? Claire shook her head slowly. I don't know for certain, but I've watched her operate for 6 years now. She targets foreclosed properties, isolated ones, always ones where the previous owner has disappeared or died. She claims ownership, drives out anyone who challenges her, and then, nothing. The cabins just sit there. She looked out the window again. There's something else going on, something bigger. I just can't prove it. I drove back to the motel with Claire's words echoing in my head. 3 cabins, the same pattern. Quitclaim deeds appearing out of nowhere, signed by owners who had already lost everything. A notary who shared Brenda's last name, a community too afraid to ask questions. I opened my laptop and searched for Victor Aldridge, a real estate attorney whose name had come up in my earlier research. His website listed foreclosure disputes and title fraud as specialties. I sent him an email at 11:43 that night, attaching the chain of title, the quitclaim deed, and my side-by-side signature comparison. The subject line was simple. I think I've found evidence of deed fraud. I need your help. His reply came at 7 the next morning. I've reviewed your documents. We need to talk. This is bigger than you think. Victor Aldridge's office was on the 14th floor of a glass tower in downtown Denver. He was older than I expected, early 50s, silver at the temples, with the measured calm of someone who had seen every kind of property dispute imaginable. On his desk sat a thick folder with my name on it. He'd printed everything I'd sent, plus documents I hadn't known existed. I ran a full title search on your cabin, he said, sliding a stack of papers across the desk. And then I ran searches on every foreclosed property in Pinewood Ridge over the past 6 years. He paused, letting the weight of that settle. Your cabin isn't an isolated case. Mr. Cole, it's part of a pattern. He walked me through it methodically. In the past 6 years, 7 properties in Pinewood Ridge had gone into foreclosure. Of those 7, 4 had been acquired by Brenda Holloway through quitclaim deeds, each one dated just before the county auction. Each one signed by the defaulting owner. Each one notarized by the same person, Megan Holloway. I asked who Megan was. Victor pulled up a Colorado Secretary of State record. Megan Holloway, age 29, licensed notary public for 5 years, home address listed in Fort Collins. Emergency contact on her license application, Brenda Holloway. Relationship noted as aunt. The notary who validated every suspicious deed was Brenda's niece. Victor let me absorb that before continuing. There's more, he said. I filed a public records request with the HOA for meeting minutes from the past 3 years. They're required to keep them under the Colorado Common Interest Ownership Act. Take a look at this. He handed me a printout from a meeting dated 18 months ago, 2 months before my cabin went to auction. The agenda included a line item, Discussion of Delinquent Property Assessments. The minutes noted that 3 cabins were at risk of foreclosure due to unpaid HOA fees and county taxes. The board had voted unanimously not to notify the owners or attempt any outreach. The motion was introduced by Brenda Holloway. It passed 4-0, with Brenda casting the deciding vote as president. I stared at the page. The HOA had known these properties were failing. They had deliberately chosen not to warn the owners, and then, weeks before each auction, Brenda had shown up with quitclaim deeds claiming she already owned them. "She's not just stealing cabins," I said slowly. "She's engineering the foreclosures." Victor nodded. "That's what it looks like. She uses her position to identify vulnerable properties, ensures the owners don't get help, and then swoops in with fraudulent paperwork before anyone else can bid." But there was still a piece missing. How were the quitclaim deeds getting recorded without anyone noticing a forged signature was one thing, but county clerks were supposed to verify documents before filing them. Victor pulled out one more sheet, a list of all recorded documents for the 4 suspicious properties. Every single one had been processed by the same clerk, Dennis Pratt, senior records processor at the county office. I remembered him. Tired eyes, reading glasses. He'd been the one who handed me my own title documents without a second glance. "I made some calls," Victor said. "Pratt has worked in that office for 22 years. No complaints, no disciplinary actions. But about 4 years ago, he bought a new truck paid cash, last year. He took a 3-week vacation to Hawaii. His salary is $54,000 a year." The implication was clear. Pratt wasn't just careless, he was complicit. We spent the next 2 hours building a timeline. 4 cabins, 4 quitclaim deeds, 4 forged signatures. 1 notary, 1 county clerk, 1 HOA president had orchestrated everything from the inside. Victor laid it all out on a whiteboard: dates, names, document numbers, connections. When he stepped back, the pattern was undeniable. This wasn't opportunistic fraud. It was a system, refined over the years, designed to strip property from vulnerable owners and transfer it to Brenda Holloway without anyone asking questions. "What do we do now?" I asked. Victor sat back in his chair, fingers steepled. "We have 2 options. Option 1, we file a quiet title action, prove your deed takes precedence, and get you possession of the cabin. It'll take 6 months, maybe a year. Brenda will fight it, and even if we win, she walks away without consequences." He paused. "Option 2, we go public first. We present this evidence to the community, all of it. We let the other victims know what happened to them, and then we file a formal complaint with the county district attorney for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy." I didn't hesitate. "Option 2. Victor smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him. "I was hoping you'd say that." That afternoon, I drafted a formal request to the HOA board demanding an emergency community meeting. Under Colorado law, any property owner could request a special session with 14 days' notice if the matter involved allegations of board misconduct. I cited the statute. I attached a summary of findings. I sent copies to every email address I could find in the HOA directory. Within 3 hours, my inbox exploded. Half the messages were hostile accusations of troublemaking, threats to report me to the sheriff, demands that I leave the community. But buried among the anger were other voices, quieter ones. I always thought something was wrong with how the Simmons case was handled. My neighbor lost his cabin 2 years ago. Same story. "When is the meeting? I'll be there." Claire Dawson's reply was the shortest. "It's about time. I'll bring the others." The community center at Pinewood Ridge was a modest building, pine walls, fluorescent lights, folding chairs arranged in uneven rows. On any other night, it might have hosted a potluck dinner or a holiday craft fair. Tonight, it was standing room only. 63 property owners had shown up, more than double the usual attendance. Some had driven in from Denver. Others had taken time off work. Word had spread through the community like wildfire, and everyone wanted to see what would happen when the HOA president was finally challenged. Brenda Holloway sat at the front table, flanked by 2 board members who looked like they wished they were anywhere else. Her clipboard was in front of her, her posture rigid, her smile fixed in place. She had dressed for the occasion navy blazer, gold earrings, every hair in position. She looked like a woman who had already won. I had set up a portable projector on a folding table near the side wall. Victor Aldridge stood beside me, laptop open, documents ready. Claire Dawson sat in the second row, arms crossed, watching Brenda with the quiet patience of someone who had been waiting years for this moment. The meeting was called to order at 7 o'clock. Brenda tried to control the agenda immediately, insisting that new business be tabled until the end. But I had submitted my request properly 14 days' notice, citing Colorado statute, alleging board misconduct. The bylaws required that my item be heard first. One of the board members, a nervous man named Patterson, confirmed this reluctantly. Brenda's smile flickered, just for a moment, before she recovered. "Very well," she said. "Mr. Cole, you have the floor." I didn't waste time with accusations. I started with documents. The projector displayed my foreclosure deed date of auction, winning bid amount, county seal, and recorded transfer. Then I showed the quitclaim deed that Brenda claimed gave her ownership. I placed them side by side on the screen. "This quitclaim deed is dated 2 weeks before the county auction," I said, keeping my voice calm. "It claims that the previous owner, Gerald Fenton, voluntarily transferred his property to Ms. Holloway for $1. But Mr. Fenton was already in default. His property was already in foreclosure proceedings. Why would a man who owed the bank over $90,000 give away his cabin for a single dollar?" I clicked to the next slide, the signature comparison. This is Gerald Fenton's signature on his original mortgage application, and this is the signature on the quitclaim deed. The handwriting doesn't match. The slant is different. The letter formations are inconsistent. Murmurs rippled through the room. I clicked again. The notary who certified this quitclaim deed is Megan Holloway, Ms. Holloway's niece. The murmurs grew louder. Brenda stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. You're wasting everyone's time with conspiracy theories and forged comparisons. I acquired that property legally, and I have every right—" "Then explain this," I said, clicking to the next slide. It was the HOA meeting minutes from 18 months ago. I read the relevant passage aloud. "Motion to withhold notification to owners of delinquent properties facing potential foreclosure. Motion introduced by President Holloway, passed 4-0. I looked directly at her. "You knew these cabins were going into foreclosure. You voted not to tell the owners, and then, weeks before each auction, you filed quitclaim deeds claiming you already owned them." The room went silent. Brenda's face had gone pale, but her voice stayed sharp. "Those properties were abandoned. The owners had walked away. I was protecting this community from blight and decay by stealing them." The question came from the back of the room. An elderly man had stood up, Roy Simmons, according to Claire's whispered identification. His wife, Janet, sat beside him, gripping his arm. "We didn't abandon our cabin," Roy said, his voice shaking with anger. "We lost it because no one told us we were behind on HOA fees. We found out about the foreclosure after it was too late. And when we showed up to fight for our property, you were already inside, telling us we had no claim." Another voice joined in, then another. A woman named Garcia described how her father's cabin had been transferred to Brenda after he died, even though the estate was still in probate. A young couple named the Hendersons talked about receiving threatening letters when they'd asked questions about a neighboring property. The stories poured out, one after another, each one painting the same picture, a system designed to isolate, intimidate, and steal. Brenda tried to interrupt, tried to regain control, but the room had turned against her. Her board members sat frozen, unwilling to defend her, unwilling to speak at all. Finally, she snapped. "You have no idea what I've done for this community," she shouted, slamming her clipboard on the table. "Those cabins were worthless. The owners were deadbeats and failures. I turned abandoned junk into assets. You should be thanking me, not interrogating me like some kind of criminal." The room went dead silent. She had just admitted it not in legal terms, but in spirit. She knew those cabins weren't hers. She had taken them anyway, and she believed she was entitled to do it. Victor stepped forward and addressed the room. "Under Colorado law, the board can vote to suspend a president pending investigation of misconduct. Given what we've heard tonight, I would recommend that motion be made immediately." Patterson, the nervous board member, raised his hand. "I move to suspend Brenda Holloway from her position as HOA president, effective immediately, pending a full audit of all property transfers conducted during her tenure." The vote was unanimous. Brenda gathered her things and walked out without another word, heels clicking on the wooden floor, head held high even in defeat, but her hands were trembling. The next morning, I delivered a complete evidence package to the County District Attorney's Office deeds, meeting minutes, signature analysis, witness statements, and a formal request for criminal investigation. The clerk who accepted the file looked at the thickness of the folder and raised an eyebrow. "This is going to make someone's week very interesting," she said. The investigation took 4 months. The district attorney's office subpoenaed bank records, email correspondence, and notary logs. A forensic document examiner confirmed what I had suspected from the beginning: the signatures on all 4 quitclaim deeds were forgeries. Gerald Fenton reached at a nursing home in New Mexico where he'd moved after losing everything. Confirmed he had never signed any document transferring his property. He had never even heard of Brenda Holloway. The grand jury indicted all 3 of them in the same week. Brenda Holloway was charged with 4 counts of fraud, 4 counts of forgery, and 1 count of conspiracy. She tried to fight it at first, hiring expensive attorneys, filing motion after motion. But the evidence was overwhelming. In the end, she took a plea deal to avoid trial. The judge sentenced her to 4 years in federal prison, plus full restitution to all victims. Her real estate license was revoked permanently. Megan Holloway lost her notary commission and received 2 years of probation, plus 200 hours of community service. She testified against her aunt in exchange for avoiding prison time. Dennis Pratt, the county clerk who had processed every fraudulent deed, was terminated immediately and charged separately with accepting bribes and falsifying public records. His case is still pending, but the prosecutor told Victor they expect a conviction. The cabin was officially transferred back to me 6 weeks after the sentencing. I drove up on a Saturday morning, alone, with nothing but a new set of keys and a cooler full of groceries. The lock Brenda had installed was gone. The furniture she'd moved in had been cleared out. The place was empty, just pine walls, dusty floors, and sunlight streaming through windows that hadn't been cleaned in months. I stood in the doorway for a long time, not moving, just breathing. Then I stepped inside, closed the door behind me, and sat down on the floor. It was mine. Finally. Completely. Legally mine. The Pinewood Ridge HOA elected a new board that spring. Claire Dawson became treasurer, implementing transparent accounting for the first time in a decade. Roy and Janet Simmons received compensation for their lost cabin and are considering buying back into the community. The fear that had silenced this neighborhood for years is gone. Last month, I received an email from a stranger in Arizona, Her HOA president had filed a quitclaim deed on her late mother's property. She didn't know what to do. I wrote back the same night. Start with the county recorder's office, request the full chain of title, and document everything. Some fights don't end with one victory. They just show others the path.